me thank all of the town energy committees. I love the concept of town energy committees. This is the kind of grassroots activism that we're going to need, not only in Vermont, but around this country, to deal with what I think all of us recognize is an existential threat, not only to our state and our country, but to the entire planet. Joanna made the point, and I don't want to go into great detail in repeating it, but it is not just what the IPCC said and their code red alarm, and they're telling us that we have a very, very few years in which to cut carbon, or else we will see massive and permanent structural problems in our country and around the world, irreparable problems. And I think we are all united in the understanding that we have a moral responsibility to make sure that the planet, the country that we leave our kids and future generations is one that is healthy and is habitable. I just want you all to think about what we have observed this past summer. Just this past summer, last 2 months. We got a huge fire in Siberia, of all places. It turns out to be a larger fire than all the other fires combined. Smoke from that fire is going 3,000 miles. Okay, and the impact of that. You saw the horrible pictures in Greece, of Greece on fire. We all know what's going on in Oregon, in California. And all of you know that this is unbelievable to me. Air quality in Vermont, 3,000 miles away from Oregon, has been impacted by those fires. In fact, if you look at the moon, you'll see that the tinge in the moon, that's from the forest fires. We saw the flooding in Germany and in Belgium, historic flooding. Italy, just a few weeks ago, experienced the hottest day ever recorded in Europe. July, this past July was the hottest July ever recorded. And drought and extreme weather disturbances are having a massive impact on agriculture. We don't talk about that enough. It's not just forest fires. Farmers will not be able to produce the quality of food, the quantity of food they have historically been able to do in the United States and around the world. And around the world, that means increased hunger and turmoil. We are looking at rising sea levels, which in the not too distant future literally threaten the existence of New York City, of Miami, Charleston, other coastal cities. That is the reality that we are looking at. That's the bad news. So let me tell you the good news. Reasonably good news. And that is, we are right now working, as I think all of you know, on a $3.5 trillion, what we call the reconciliation package. And I won't bore you with all of the incredibly arcane and sometimes absurd rules that exist in the Senate, but it is a $3.5 trillion bill on top of the recently passed $550 billion so-called bipartisan infrastructure bill. That bill dealt mostly with traditional infrastructure, roads, bridges, water, broadband, also some money into climate, I think into improving our grid improvements, which certainly needs to be done. But the bill that we are working on, the $3.5 trillion bill, will not be bipartisan. Sad to say, and it is sad, we have no Republican support, not in the House, not in the Senate. So the Democratic caucus is going to have to do it alone. And while I think a lot of attention has been paid to the social implications of this legislation in extending the $300 child benefit that working class families are now getting, it's greatly expanding childcare and making pre-K education for 3 or 4 year olds free, universal, making community colleges, 2-year community colleges free, building massive amounts of low-income and affordable housing, greatly expanding home health care, expanding Medicare to cover dental, eyeglasses, hearing aids. That in addition to all of that, which is profoundly important, is social legislation, this legislation will put more, by far, into addressing climate than any piece of legislation in the history of the country. And we're talking about many, many, many hundreds of billions of dollars. So let me talk a little bit. Now, this is still a work in progress. You have 6 or 7 separate committees working on their part of the bills, but I can give you a general statement as to where we are heading. I can't give you all of the details because, that is still being worked on. I hope, by the way, that we will have this done within a month, 5 weeks. There will be many billions of dollars going into energy efficiency and making our homes and buildings much more energy efficient. And this is a real opportunity to create a whole lot of jobs. And one of the things that I want you all to think about, and we should be talking about in the discussion, is the very serious problem of not having enough workers now to address many of the issues that we're talking about. And later on this afternoon, literally almost after I'm off this program, we'll be talking to some of the leaders in community colleges in Vermont and elsewhere about how we train the workforce that we need to deal with climate, deal with healthcare, and many, many other issues. But keep that in the back of your mind, and any ideas you have on that would be sorely appreciated. I just had a press event in Waterbury at the Crossing Brook School, which has been very active in sustainable energy. And we announced that we got $1 million coming into the state for solar projects in schools and public buildings. And while there, I was talking to some people in the solar industry, and they just don't have enough workers to do solar installation. So we need to work on that. This legislation will, in a variety of ways, provide massive funding for wind, solar, and other sustainable energies. Probably the most unique and interesting aspect of what we're doing will be the electrification of transportation in America. And that means there will be very significant rebates to help working class, middle class families be able to purchase electric vehicles. A whole lot of money going into research and development in terms of battery technology and so forth. Agriculture is an important part of what we're trying to do. How do we create a greener agriculture in terms of climate? There will be massive investments in that. There'll be massive investments in climate resiliency and ecosystem recovery projects. A lot of money will go into water, clean water, environmental justice. We are going to spend money, many billions, trying to deal with the crises our oceans and water systems are facing, the acidification of the ocean. And one of the projects that I have been working on, along with some leadership in the House and the Senate, and I'm very excited about it, is what we call a Civilian Climate Corps. And we think we're going to put about $30 billion into that over a 5-year period, which will mean that many hundreds of thousands of young people from all across this country will be able to get the training that they need to help us address the climate crises that we face. That means, going from weatherizing homes to fighting forest fires and to doing everything else in between. So I want you to understand that this bill is unique and unprecedented in what it will do for climate. What I hope we can go to now, we're going to hear from some speakers. And, my hope is that Vermont can play a leadership role in transforming our energy system. And it is terribly important. And I don't think we're there yet. If this state, we just brought in $1.4 billion for transportation, we're going to bring in a whole lot more money for climate over a period of years. Are we prepared? And I know Joanna was talking about working on priorities, but are we prepared? Large sums of money come into the state. What are we going to do with that money? Do we have the workforce to do it? And we need those projects lined up. I would hope very much that this state, which has always been ahead of the curve on environmental issues in general, will become a model for the rest of the country and maybe the world in what we can do in transforming our energy systems and making us much more energy efficient. So that is a little bit about what we are trying to do in Washington. I hope that we will have this thing done and a vote on the floor 4 or 5 weeks. And then we're going to start dispensing the money and getting to work to try to save the planet. So that's just what I wanted to say, Joanna.